to RBR guys and say hello to the new RS E-Tron GT Performance, the most powerful Audi sport car ever, and one of 3 new E-Trons that I'm going to show you today. And this is the first performance model of an electric Audi sport car that we've had so far. Remember, the performance models were like we've had in the past with the RS6 and the RS7, and they've always stood out as being the most exciting of the bunch, and that is what they're trying to do here with this RS E-Tron GT Performance. Now there's 3 models to talk about. We've got the S E-Tron GT, which is the first model, and I just want to pre-warn you that even this base model is more powerful than the top level RS E-Tron GT of our pre-facelift, okay? So it's going to be exciting to look at. Then we've got the RS E-Tron GT, which sits as our middle level. And finally, this amazing looking car in Bedford Green Metallic, which is a unique color to this, with tons of unique things, and that is, of course, our GT Performance. And we're going to check out every single detail of this. I'll fill you in on the other 3 cars as well, and of course, what's been upgraded on a technical basis, because the range is way better, the power far outclasses what was in the previous E-Tron, and there is an amazing new suspension system, the best that you can get of its kind for a car like this available in this. Now in terms of design, there's quite a bit of difference now between the 3 of them, whereas before you needed to look at the badge to see the difference. Now it's quite obvious. Our S E-Tron has the typical S style of air intakes on the front with the kind of block design on the sides. You've got a less aggressive rear diffuser as well, and generally it is immediately recognizable as being an S model. You come to the RS and it looks a lot more like you'd see in the combustion models of Audi Sport. You've got the hexagonal grille on the front, you've got plenty of use of carbon fiber, larger air intakes, those lovely new wheels inspired by the RS6 GT and the old Avis concept. It all looks great. And then you come to this RS Performance and it just looks amazing. And to really appreciate the differences on it, which are more about trim and what options you get, to be honest, you need to come close. Let's take a look around it. We all find it a little bit difficult to get excited about electric cars, right? Because there's this whole thing at the moment with the market and the values and all this kind of stuff. But if we just put that to one side for a second and just talk about electric car design, for me, almost every petrol head I've spoken to has said, yeah, the Taycan is great, but the E-Tron GT is just a level above. And I've always thought that as well. And now with this RS Performance, it's like, it's even further. I think it's a really, really good looking car. It brings in a lot of what we love about combustion cars, but melds it well to what you need to have and what you should have with an EV. What I mean by that is, if we look at the front here, you still maintain the fact that you don't need a traditional grille, right? Because it's an EV. So you've got this honeycomb structure instead. You've got Audi's new corporate identity with the 2D. We'll talk about that in a minute. But then you've got the aggressive RS-like intakes on the side, which, you know, you've got the lovely hexagonal shape, gloss black, and this you'll see a lot in the Performance. This is what they called camouflaged carbon. It's basically forged carbon, isn't it? But this is specific to the Performance. But all of that is so combustion RS Audi Sport, isn't it? Which looks really, really nice. So you've got this melding of those 2 worlds, a really wide front, and you look at it and it's like, yeah, that's kind of the car we saw Tony Stark driving in the Avengers, right? So I like that element, that's nice. I'm not sure about their new corporate identity, this whole 2D ring thing. I quite liked the traditional chrome rings. I don't know what you guys think. I want to hear from you. This is the first few Audi models that I'm filming here today that have this, and I'm just not sure. The rest of it is really nice. Come around the side, the wheels are beautiful. These really remind me of the wheels that we saw in the RS6 GT. They're like the Avis concept wheels, and it's that similar type of design, but they're obviously very aerodynamic still, but they're one of the best electric wheels that I've seen, I think. You've got massive carbon ceramic discs hiding behind there. New tyres, new development here. Again, more camouflage carbon here, and that continues along the side. This is optional if you don't want it on the Performance. You don't have to have it. Here's more new Audi corporate identity. So, you know, when someone asks you what car is that, you just say, and you don't even have to talk to people then, which is great for introverts like me. Matte carbon roof. I've not seen anyone do that, so that's quite nice. Again, optional if you want it. And then the rear 3/4, again, particularly in the RS model, is probably the best I've seen on an EV because you've got just such an aggressive motorsport-like diffuser. Of course you can't have exhaust, but the way the diffuser has been made here with the carbon, with this kind of hexagonal texture within the gloss black, it's not just flat gloss black, and then your reflector in that kind of motorsport position, that looks nice and aggressive. I like that. Again, I'm not sure about the type they're using, maybe we're just not used to it yet, but that is a much more attractive rear end to me than Taycan ever was. That's why I always went for the Cross Turismo or the Sport Turismo on that particular car, because it just never excited me enough. Whereas this, I think, knocks spots off that car. Now, there's one other bit about this car, which is really cool, and that is a whole new suspension system, right? This is a suspension system that we've seen on the channel before, and it's the best of its kind. This is just one of the tricks that it does. So a really quick, easy entry and easy exit system. I'm going to explain more about this in a second. Those of you who've seen my Panamera video know exactly what I'm about to say. But this, for a heavy car, groundbreaking. Now let's talk about what's under the skin. Of course, this is an EV. You guys know how that story works. You've got a big battery, you've got motors, but they have made some significant changes here. Let's start with the battery. The battery is the same size, but it's slightly heavier, and it's got more capacity, a lot more. We're at 97-ish usable kilowatts, which is about 12% better than before, which means we're getting a lot more range out of this, and I'll fill you in on the range figure in a second. So range is better. Then we have the motors, where we've got a PSM motor on both the front and the rear on all of the models. The models are actually identical in terms of the motors they're using, but the rear motor has been updated quite a bit. It's longer, it's bigger, but it's lighter than it was before. And as you can see, it's providing more power than it ever used to. So that accounts for a lot of the power difference that we then see across the entire model lineup. Let's start with the S E-Tron, and this one by itself just blows me away. 680 PS, which is more than the previous top dog RS GT E-Tron, right? That's crazy, and that's just your base model. And I know it's easy to uprate EVs, but that's great value for money. That's what I'm trying to talk about here. So that's a great start. We've got a 0 to 60 of 3.5 seconds, a decent amount of torque as well. Then you come to the RS E-Tron GT, which was our previous flagship, now sitting in the middle. This has got 857 PS, increased amount of torque, and a 0 to 60 of 2.8 seconds. Again, really good. We'll come to range in a sec. Like I said, it's really improved. Then the madness of the GT performance. This has got 925 PS, a torque figure of 1,000 plus Newton meters, and a 0 to 60 of 2.5 seconds. And that's not even far off in-house rival Porsche with the Taycan Turbo GT YSAC crazy thingy, right? So that is damn impressive. And more than anything, forget the rivals. This is the most powerful Audi sport car ever, which, yeah, it's not really that surprising because it is an EV and that's always going to happen. But still, you can't help but marvel at the amount of power on offer with this car. The performance manages to achieve that thanks to an uprated pulse inverter that sits in there that allows it to give much more power. And then we have a further boost function available, or a push to pass, which gives you 70 kilowatts additional power for 10 seconds when you need it, and then it has to cool down and then you can use it again. Then let's talk about range, which is massively improved. Even in this, we've got 594 kilometers of range quoted. Of course, in real life, it may be less, it depends how you drive. And then you go to the S E-Tron and it's up to 611 kilometers, but this is a big improvement, almost 100 kilometers per model series over the previous E-Tron. Then we come to the suspension. As standard, you have a 2-valve suspension which controls your rebound and compression, helps give this car a lot of breathability in terms of comfort and sportiness. All the best cars in the world have this. But then they've gone a stage above with the best suspension system that we've ever seen on this channel. We saw it before in Porsche's Panamera, and it's the same type of system in this. In fact, it is the same hardware as well. This is the active ride system, and it is very clever. Not only does it allow us to do the easy entry, which is just a small perk of that system, in terms of dynamics and luxury, it changes the game. This system gives us active shock absorbers with their own hydraulic pump, but not just one per wheel. And those shock absorbers are with 2-valve technology that allow super fast reactions of each wheel in literally milliseconds. What does this mean in reality? It means when the car is going down uneven terrain, it will remain completely straight, whether it's potholes or other bad roads. When it's curvature of the road and turns, it will again remain completely straight. It increases the luxurious side of this car massively in terms of its breadth of ability, but it's not just luxury. Those dampers again react really quickly when it comes to driving faster and more dynamically. For example, if you're accelerating really fast and cars have a tendency to rise on the front end, this car will instead keep straight and dip down as a method to control a heavier car, which every EV is. This is something that's hard to beat, and it made cars like that Panamera I drove feel, 300 to 400 kg lighter, which is exactly what an EV needs to do to act dynamically. And the great thing is you can get the suspension system across any of these e-tron models, regardless of which one it is. The tyres are also a new development here versus previous e-tron, and we have got 2.6 degree rear axle steering on this as well. So a lot of things changed. Really the proof of the pudding will be in the driving of this. Now, let's jump inside. Let's have a look at the changes on the inside as well, because there's just a few that you might like. So guys, here's the interior of our Performance, which is quite stunning, particularly that carbon. I think the idea of it initially weirded me out. I know we've seen it in other, higher end tuning houses and stuff, Mansory, etc., doing forged carbon, but I think it actually suits an RS car quite well, because they've always been very bold, even back in the days. The decisions, their designs, always bolder than the other Germans. So I think if anyone can pull it off, it's probably them. And the structure of the e-tron GT interior kind of lends to it, because it's a very interesting structure. It's not a boring electric car interior like most are. So I like that. I like the inclusion of that carbon. You also get it in our side sills here. You can see in the RS side sills, which is nice. It's on the rear as well. And you've seen the Bedford green on the outside. You've got serpentine green stitching on the inside, which is like a matching look, which is really nice. It's subtle, but it's quite beautiful. And that continues like on the stitching of our lovely brand new RS steering wheel. This is flat topped and flat bottom, not just flat bottom. It's got this nice spoke at the bottom that I like. It's a bit more exciting. Obviously the new buttons that we found in newer Audis now, the new corporate identity, which this is just boring. I don't like this airbag. Get rid of this. That is boring, and it lets down the rest of this, which is beautiful. A nice slim dynamic steering wheel, nice thick 12 o'clock marker, these excellent looking satellite buttons on the side. That's your overboost button, 70 kilowatts on demand, 10 seconds, brilliant. RS modes, tap that and it takes you straight into whichever RS mode you want to go into. You can flick through them, and it's I really like the way those buttons are designed, and the steering wheel in general. This is a step up. Apart from that airbag, is a real step up. Then we have something unique to the Performance GT, which was inspired by the RS2 Avant, which is having these white rev dials instead of the black and red ones that you have in normal cars. You can turn this off, but I think it's a really nice harken back to that, and it makes this Performance model a little bit more special, so why wouldn't you use it? And of course you can switch to the classic styles and you still get the nice white details, which is cool. And there's a number of options. Of course you can change what details you have on each side, but yeah, that's all inspired by the RS2. The other thing that's unique to the Performance is the sound when you go into electric mode. Obviously the car is off at the moment. You turn it on and the Performance will have a different sound to the standard RS GT, and the S will have a different sound to the RS GT as well. So each of the models have their own sound profile, which is good, and it's important that they do, again, to differentiate, just like we're doing on the design. Seats are typically Audi Sport as well, with their hexagonal pattern, but this is new. We did not have this in the e-tron before, so it's good to have the RS logo as you would in the past. And the rear, again, unchanged. This is a solid roof. Of course, we've got the carbon roof on here, the matte one. There is panoramic roof, and there is the opaque changing roof, as you may have seen in Taycan. So that is an option in these cars as well. So Overall, a really nice interior. I think one that is eventful enough to please someone who's spending more on the top level version of the e-Tron, certainly more than before. And I think that's the point here, is giving customers value for money, more value for money than they had previously in this car. The rest of this interior I really like. I like the center console, lots of dynamica here, lots of Napa leather. It feels strong and well built. You've got some nice buttons here as well. We'd like to have more buttons. This has got more buttons than generally most Audis do these days, which is great. Usually there's another silly touchscreen here. Instead you've got some, you know, some good analog stuff. I like that. It's ironic that their top electric car is a bit more analog in terms of buttons than any of the other cars. So yeah, this is one of my favorite Audi interiors, if not my favorite at the moment. So guys, that's our first look at the facelift e-Tron in all three of its guises. Undoubtedly, they've done everything better now. The range is better, the power just of the base model is more than the previous RS. Now at least all of them look different, kind of like a normal Audi model that when you get the S is totally different to the RS, and then the performance goes wild, but you can still spec it the way you want, which is great. The real proof is always when we drive these things. What's the eventual price? What eventual deals can we get on cars like these, particularly EVs? All of that will decide whether it's a make or break thing. But just in terms of a pure design exercise for an EV, I still haven't found anything that I prefer to this car, and this one's only made it better. So if you enjoyed this first look of the RS e-Tron, please do like and subscribe to RBR. I'll see you guys next time.